Welcome to Selling with Impact, how to create slides that seal the deal. I'm Brigette Callahan, and I'm a graphic designer and a storyteller, and I'm your guide today into how to make slides more presentable. And they are created to not only just inform, but influence. So let's be honest, we've all endured a slide deck that felt more like a slow fade to boredom. You know the ones, walls of text, no story, no spark. And yet when it's our turn to present, we say, well, my slides are good enough. But good enough doesn't close deals. And good enough doesn't move decision makers. So let's flip the script and design decks that persuade, resonate, and convert. So put a yes in the chat or a Y in the chat if you're ready to be seen, heard, and remembered. Hopefully you can find the chat. Great, thank you. And put a yes in the chat if you want your presentations to spark action and not just applause. We want those action takers, right? And put a yes in the chat if you're done with slow sales cycles or connection cycles and you want your message to move people to buy. Yeah, right. Okay, great. So imagine stepping off stage, knowing your presentation didn't just land, it converted. You gained leads, you sparked momentum, you moved the room. Clients hire me to design slides when they have a presentation coming up that really matters. So after working together, my client did exactly that. She generated $72,000 in just 30 minutes from one talk. Not because she changed her offer, but because we changed her slides. Curious what made the difference? Well, stay tuned, and in a moment, I will tell you how I did it. And to make a bold promise, by the end of this talk, you will never look at slides the same way again. So throughout this session, you might start recognizing some of your own slides, the ones that are helping you and the ones that might be quietly working against you. Because great slides don't just display information, they guide your audience and how they think, feel, and remember. So you're here for strategy and precision and the kind of visual clarity that gets results. So thank you for showing up. Let's make every minute count. So later in the session, I'm going to show you how you can get a quick diagnostic on your own slides if you like help applying these ideas. And since I know some of you may have another meeting waiting, I'll make sure everyone still receives the resource, I promise. So I believe every presentation can make a lasting impact and inspire action. And I believe all slideshows should be like a Hollywood movie. And yes, I am a design expert and I am obsessed with beautiful visuals that convert. And I also am fortunate to travel many countries working as a graphics operator for live events and working backstage, helping them with their slides, seeing what they look like on these large screens and seeing the impact it has on the audience. I started my own graphic design business in 1998, and I've named my company Babilon Arts, and I love creating artwork all day. As an artist, I am fortunate to do what I love and get compensated for it. Working with incredible clients, I help elevate their slide presentations, their websites, and their branding to reflect their expertise and make a lasting impact. And I've worked for various companies in their art department. And before computers, I learned the skills of slide design working for an event company. I worked in the rooms of live events, helping speakers make changes to their slides just before they present. And I've worked for these Fortune 500 companies, helping speakers and brands shine on stages big and small. I've won awards for logos, websites, and package design, and yes, slide design. But my greatest joy is helping people like you turn your message into something unforgettable, where slides and story unite. And you don't just present, you perform. And that's where the magic happens. Why? Because visuals are your secret weapon. They don't just support your message, they amplify it. A single image can capture emotion, context, and clarity faster than a flood of words ever could. In fact, I'm going to show you how each slide in your presentation can speak louder than your script, conveying 10 times more meaning and helping your audience retain more of what truly matters. We'll delve into how our brains retain information through sight and emotion. The more stories you tell, the more you sell. Using realistic pictures with your narratives makes your story even more powerful and memorable. Great slide design isn't just about making things pretty. It's about guiding your audience's brain, what they see, what they feel, and what they remember. That's design psychology in action to help you boost your sales and impact. And with over 35 years in the game, I've cracked this code to help you. Imagine a secret formula that turns presentations into sales machines. Well, I've got that, and it makes your audience sit up, take notice, and take action. So the magic formula for speakers who want more sales or impact is the wow factor. That's the instant your audience leans in. It's not polish, it's not presence, it's energy, that spark that makes them think, I need this. Next is visual connections. Slides stop being backgrounds and becomes power tools, guiding the eye, locking in the message, and making ideas crystal clear, like a soundtrack hitting every beat. And finally, magnetic conversions. This is where inspiration becomes invitation. When your visuals line up with your strategy, your talk isn't just memorable, it moves people to act. And the result? More leads, more sales, and greater impact. Exactly what your message deserves. So let's dig a little deeper into the wow factor. And it's the element of surprise and delight that captivates an audience from the very first slide, transforming a presentation from ordinary to extraordinary and leaving a lasting impression. So this slide tells the story of transformation. We don't lean straight to faith, we move through it. First, there's fear. And oh, wait a minute. Are you inspired by this slide? First of all, that white background is just blinding the heck out of me. Look at the redesign. We all carry this dial. It doesn't flip, it shifts. Some days lean into fear, others towards trust. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's choosing again and again to turn towards faith. Way better, way more impactful, and way more memorable. I'm going to ask you a question at the end. I want to ask, like, what slides do you remember at the end of this talk? Because I think it's really important to see what different slides have impact on people. So the magical ingredient called the wow factor is essential in high-level slide design because it captures attention, enhances memory, and encourages interaction. And that sets you apart from the competition. You know you've created the wow factor when someone says, oh my goodness, I need this now. So let's show you how strategic slide design directly ties to revenue growth. Keep it simple. The fewer words, the better. And minimize white backgrounds. Be concise with your text. What happens when we have all white backgrounds is it blinds us. It's like at midnight, the cop pulled you over and is shining the light in your eyes and you're trying to find your license because you got pulled over for speeding. What we do, our eyes are conjugating dark letters on a white background. So it's like a mind super, having to use your brain way too much. We have to conjugate the H, the E, the R, the E. Oh, that's here's. A. And so can you imagine after about 10 minutes of droning through these white backgrounds, your audience will be brain dead and they'll basically fall asleep. So here's a slide I found online. I was like, how can we make this better? Well, first, how do we get rid of the white? Well, go full frame with that graphic. It's a great graphic. And use light text on a dark background. Notice how much easier it is to read. And, my commitment is to abolish the boring slide and create a win-win experience for you and your audience. So this next slide is a bulleted slide, but it's cluttered, it's confusing, and it's hard to read. The value is buried in text. The title, it's a weak font, random colors lost on a white background. You have to hunt just to find the total value. But how colorful is this? Text is easy to read. The prices line up. We see the total value, and each element is tied to a visual image. And here's a clean example showing 3 text blocks. Can you see this is a bulleted text, but it doesn't look like bullets because I don't want you to use bullets because they kill. Okay, here's another bulleted slide, but we already kind of know now, how do we make this better? First of all, do we need to have those bullets listed, or are you just going to say it and talk about it and actually tell a story around it? So go full frame with that image. We can look at this image and stare at it for 10 minutes and start thinking, wow, that young guy looks like my brother. That older guy looks like my uncle, as they're talking about problem and solution. And she's basically saying, whatever you put in your body will either keep you young or it'll age you. And so she's going through that process of health. And we are listening to that and tying it to that image. Here's the former CFO of Microsoft. He hired me to do his talk. And of course, he gives me bulleted slides. He's Microsoft. But I was thinking, how can I create this story as it was such an impactful story? So I used my own handwriting. I wrote it on Post-it notes, and then I laid them out on a table and revealed them like bullet points, one at a time. And then when he went into a story, he was talking about one of his assistants. He discovered a quarterly report and he was assessing data. And he's like, oh my God, we have to do something about this. And so he drew conclusions and he walked over to sales and says, you need to call everyone on this list and ask them, why didn't they renew? And then ask them to renew. Just from that one 10-minute motion that he did after reviewing a quarterly report and then going tell sales what to do, they made $10 million. That was mind-blowing for finance to realize, oh, we're the mentors, we're not the heroes. Sales are the heroes. So that whole story was about that. You know, visual connections are everything, and great images aren't just pretty, they're persuasive. Hollywood knows this. Strong visuals connect. They lift your slides, they drive your message home. Visual connections are vital in every high-level slide design to reinforce the message clearly and powerfully. You know, Hollywood doesn't use bullets in their movies. They use story and action and visuals that spark emotion. And that's what draws us in. So let me show you a few more examples that brings out the emotion. This was a slide from one of my clients. We redesigned his deck and he had a hot seat slide. And it's like, I can't seem to find an image. I keep coming up with these stupid cartoons. I mean, who is compelled to sit in that kind of a hot seat? I'm not. We don't really relate to cartoons like relate to real actual photos. But when I found this, I was like, oh my God, that's it. And when I showed it to him, he was speechless. Why? Because look at this chair. It's so comfortable. It's that deep leather chair you see in swanky hotel lobbies. You just want to sit in it and melt, but it's surrounded by this desolate land and this impending storm. So you've got comfort and tension. And isn't that what a hot seat is? You know, visuals enhance the audience's ability to listen and understand, much like when your parents read you a bedtime story as a child, where you just wanted to see the pictures. A whole world gets built into your memory from listening to words and tying them to pictures. So here's a foundation graphic. It's the title of her talk. And look at the background. It's a faded image of a book opened. And look at that binding. It is tattered and it is used. And it's like, wow, if I ever write a book, I hope my book looks like that. You immediately think, oh, maybe I can write a book. What's this about? You know, why? I don't even know what to write. So she's talking about credibility with a book. And then she goes into the story of why a book. And again, she talked to this one slide for 10 minutes, but we're looking at this image and we're formulating our memory based on what she's saying. She's telling the story. You know, books last. Business cards, flyers, brochures, they get tossed, but books don't. A book makes you an expert. It says, you know your stuff. You're here to stay. I didn't need to list that as bullet points. You've got it in your bones now. And then discover your heart message. She says, how do I start a book? Well, you discover your heart message. And I love this image because it reminds me of when we were kids and we lived on the beach and that bonfire and the wet sand and the sunsets are just gorgeous. And I was like, what the heck is she doing with that fire stick? So you can see I'm formulating my own opinion from memories of the past. I'm tying it to what she's saying. That creates a super memory. That's what helps us remember what was said next day, next week, next month. And here's this, frame your message so people hunger for it. I love this image. It was a found image. This was way before AI. This was 7 years ago. And it's perfect. It's rice in the form of a heart. So we started this heart motif throughout her talk. Frame your message. It's in a frame. It just said exactly what she was looking for. And then back to my Microsoft client, he was describing his dismay in how he, you know, lost trust with the sales and marketing department. So this is how his talk went. Yeah, I never meant to alienate half the company, especially not my own partners, the president, sales heads, marketing, and more. But that's exactly what I did. So what went wrong? So you see, it was just two images, the same image, changed colors, put a little text on top of it, but it creates a whole world of emotion. Here's another foundation graphic. It's a title of a presentation, and it's built almost like a movie poster. It looks like a book cover. We took images from inside her deck and composited them together, and it creates a nice beginning to her talk. And then here's another one. Turn behavior problems into no problem. Now, can you imagine the slide without that picture? It'd be really hard to guess what that talk is about. But once you see that picture, you instantly know. And then here's a couple of slides. It's a series of telling my client's credibility story. And it goes like this. My first child, I called Mini Me, and I got the 2 a.m. feeding. So there I sat, only he and I. It ended up being my all-time favorite periods in life. As a provider, so worth it. I don't know about you, but that evokes a flood of emotion for me. And then here's one of his interior shots. And, there's 7 words on the slide. Words on a slide is okay, but just not a bunch of times. Yeah, every time you cause them to read, because you put text on a slide, you turn their ears off. And when you're talking on top of them trying to read, it creates dissension. So that's why you don't see a lot of text on my slides. And then this one, know your customer. You can look at this slide for 10 minutes and formulate all kinds of memory. You look at his face, he's smiling, he's looking at her, she's looking at their hands, or looking at the product. We scan around the room. And all this time, the client that was speaking, he's talking about know your customer. And how do you understand their needs and behaviors? It was a marketing message. And then here's another one. Offer your customer real value, something competitors can't or won't deliver. Well, it's clearly she values shopping. But again, a beautiful picture that we can tie what they're saying into memory. And then effective communication is what is remembered and acted upon. To do this, you must entertain, you must engage, you must inform, and you must have a call to action. This is my favorite all-time bulleted slide. So without connection, conversion becomes impossible. So the third part of our formula is those magnetic conversions. Your call to action is your superhero. People don't buy automatically. When your call to action is strong, they say yes, and your business grows. This series of slides tells the story of leveraging your time by speaking one-to-many. So let's say you have a potential client on a Zoom call and your product is $8,000. And in that hour, they bought your product. Wow, congratulations, you made $8,000 in an hour. But what if you could speak to many people in an hour? And of those people, what if 5 people bought your product? Wow, 5 people, new clients, $40,000. You want to ask yourself, what is your time worth to you? So you can see how a series of slides is like a Hollywood movie. It tells the story, it makes it more memorable, and it makes it more fun. This next slide is for a coach that helps her clients move from being victims of circumstance to being authors of their own story, from reactors to creators. And so I designed this simple animated slide, and people relate to it. We relate to this. We know what Scrabble is. So how do you transform a reactor to a creator? Well, it's just one click. Now that's memorable. So Brigette, how do you do it? How do you take a mountain of messy ideas, half-baked slides, and scattered thoughts and turn them into something that shines on stage? I get that question asked a lot. And the truth is, it's not magic, but it feels like it. Because when you think about the most unforgettable movies, what really stays with you? It's emotion, momentum, and transformation. A story that grabs you and won't let you go. That's not by accident. That's design. It's intentional, it's strategic, and it's powerful. And that's exactly what I bring to your presentation. And I call it the Hollywood effect. Slide design that sells like cinema. Every slide is a scene. It's the difference between a flat, forgettable presentation and one that feels like a blockbuster performance, where every scene is crafted to move your audience forward. So how do you take something as dreaded as a slide deck and make it unforgettable? Well, you treat it like cinema. When slides are crafted like scenes in a great film, they don't just inform, they move people. So here's how it works. Think about how Hollywood does movies. Every unforgettable film begins with a spark, an idea that stirs imagination. And that idea grows into a story with shape and soul. And then the script lays the foundation, guiding the flow of every scene. Then come the storyboard, turning your vision into visuals. And only then does this filming start beginning. And that's when I say, that's when you start slides. So most people start their slides before they even have their script or their idea. So they start formulating ideas and they're looking at slides at the same time. It's really not the best way to go. So learn from how Hollywood does movies. So imagine your presentation is a film in progress. You're not just delivering information, you're directing an experience. So take a step back. Look at your slides as if they're scenes. What's the core idea that sparked this presentation? What story are you really telling? Who's the hero? Your client, your audience, your solution? And where's the tension, the turning point, the resolution? When you approach your slides this way, you start seeing more than bullet points. You uncover stories, stories that stir emotions and shift perspectives and inspire action. So let's play a little example here. Say your story is about the best coach in your industry, but you did start out that way. Let's look at the storyline. I found out I was really good at being a life coach for my friends. So my story goes, I was a college dropout. I went from job to job. I found out I was really good at being a coach. So I got training and then I hung my shingle. Great. So now let's go to the script. We have our outline. So now the script is basically a Hollywood script is what actors say word for word. Now that may be overkill for your talk, but it gives you an idea. You want to kind of flesh out your talk in more detail. And then once your script is complete, then the storyboards are created. I'm not asking you to do thumbnails like this. These are beautiful, by the way. But these are thumbnails based on finding images. We took little bits from the script, put it in a photo bank, and look at the images we found. So if you put that image there and talk about being a college dropout, they're tying what your story is about college to that image. They're not trying to read words. So you want to look at your talk as a series of slides that tell a story. And then you're sorting through your slides to order your story. So then it's time to start filming. And then you can open your slides and start creating. So then you're ready to present. So let me ask you something. How many of you have ever watched a movie and 3 weeks later you could still describe the story in detail? Yet, how many presentations have you attended where you couldn't even remember a single slide the next day? That's the difference. And it isn't about talent, it's about design. So yes, slides can be sexy and they can be cinematic. And when you bring your story, your design, and your emotion together, you're not just showing information, you're directing a scene that sells. And that's the Hollywood effect. And now that you know it, you'll never see another boring slide deck the same way again. So Helen, she was an exceptional book writing coach, and we met in a mastermind course on speaking to sell. And although she had known me for years, she never reached out, believing that slide design didn't make much of a difference until she saw my client's presentation. He was a guest speaker at one of her 3-day events. And when he finished his talk, the whole audience flew to the back of the room to buy his product. Helen was astounded and thrilled because she received a percentage of the profits from his sales, but she was also bewildered and wondered, how did he manage to achieve such success? So 2 weeks later, she finally called me. She was invited to speak to a small but very powerful group. So we worked together on her slides, and when she presented, she made $6,000, which was not a lot, but however, they loved her talk so much, they asked her to come back, says, we want you to speak next month to 300 people. So we continued to work on her slides, this time kind of fine tuning her talk because she's used it once. Now she's feeling it and some things needed to be filled in or some things were missing. And so we worked on her slides and now she's on stage again, 300 people, nervous, but excited because she knows now her presentation makes a huge difference. And this time she made $72,000 from a 30-minute talk, from no sales to $6,000 in sales to $72,000 in just 1 month. So what could you do with a $72,000 payday in the next month? So one of the things I had Helen do was practice her talk every single day and record it and send me the recording for 30 days straight. Sounds intense, right? But here's the magic. I needed her to truly see what ignited her passion, and she needed to connect more deeply with her message. And as she practiced day by day, I tuned into her script. We built slides to match, and suddenly her story, her methods, and her audience all connected. And guess what? Helen didn't just practice. She connected deeply to the core themes of her talk, like her personal story, the transformative power of her methods, and the tangible benefits for her audience. And when it clicked, you should have seen her. She was dancing, radiating pure joy because she finally felt the power of her message. So we've explored how compelling slides can transform your presentations. Now imagine you're sitting in front of your computer and you're working on your slides and you have this blank white screen and you don't know what to do. Well, I have a gift that might help. For everyone who attended today, I'm providing my exclusive slide design cheat sheet. It's a quick reference guide to instantly improve your slide design and includes font pairings, color psychology, and layout best practices, and your call to action placement tips. So you want to know that this is your secret weapon to make slides more professional and persuasive. And if you have a presentation coming up, I offer something called a cinematic slide diagnostic. In about 20 minutes, we'll look at your slides together and you'll leave knowing exactly what is working and what isn't, and what will make the biggest difference. You'll walk away with specific improvements you can use immediately, whether we work together or not. So bring me your most important slides, and together we'll craft a winning strategy for more leads, more sales, and bigger impact. Normally I charge $150 for these meetings, but I'm offering a few sessions for no charge if you go to endslideshame.com. If you like the kind of clarity that I showed you today, then book a call with me. You'll get simplicity and you'll get clear and you'll get the professional insight on your slides. We'll discover the number one thing that's weakening your presentation to see how your slides look through the audience's eyes. We'll get 3 specific improvements you can implement immediately, and you'll learn whether your presentation is helping or hurting conversions. So there are 2 ways to move forward, depending on how soon you need results. Some of you are thinking, Brigette, I need your help now. I have a presentation coming up, a pitch or a talk, and a sales moment that really matters. So if that's you, book a private cinematic slide diagnostic with me and we'll look at your slides and see how we can help. But if you're not looking for help, you just want some feedback, also book a call, okay? And many avoid booking calls because they expect a pitch. However, this is not a sales call. You're going to leave with clear insights, whether we work together or not. I had 5 people last week jump on a call and they were just amazed, like, there's no sales pitch. It's like, no, I'm here to help. I'm here to make a difference for you. If you're using slides, you're making your own slides, how can we make them better? So I hope this makes sense to you. You get to choose what your next step is. You know, there's 2 ways to move forward depending on how soon you want results. And there's the scan code again if you want to meet. I look forward to hearing what great things that you get to make with your slides. And remember, I made a promise to you in the beginning that slides would never look the same way again. So I hope I fulfilled on that promise. I think presentations look different now, don't they? With the tips I shared today, you can elevate your presentations and shine as an expert. I invite you to meet with me and transform your slides into captivating experiences that leave a lasting impression. The best slide decks aren't quiet. They hum with persuasion. So thanks for coming, and I look forward to meeting with you.